welcome to the Luminary podcast. I am your host, Annie Perry, professional psychic channel, seer, spirituality teacher, manifestation coach. We've been having such a great time in Elysium. That is my fall manifestation container where I teach you the universal laws and how to manifest, how to tell new stories with your life that literally attract exactly what you desire. And I just want to take a moment to shout out the women that are in this container. Just like so absolutely incredible. The revelations they're having, the way that they receive the coaching, the way that they do the assignments, just their dedication and their willingness, their commitment to this new version of themselves and to a bigger and more full and delicious life. It's really, really inspiring. I feel so incredibly grateful. I think since we started the container 1 week ago, it's only been 7 days, 1 week ago, I've already cried twice with so much gratitude that these women are just showing up, and the way that they show up is just absolutely incredible. So I've had a few cry sessions of just pure gratitude, pure love, pure appreciation, and I really want to celebrate them and the work that they're putting in. It's been really, really inspiring. And if you would like to join the next container, so this container right now for September, October, November is closed. But if you would like to join the next round starting in January, you can get on the wait list. There's actually already people on the wait list, even though that's 4 months away. So you can put your name down on the wait list to be the first to get all of the information and decide if it is right for you. Enrollment will open in December, so you'll have an early month to join and secure your spot for January. It's just been really, really transformational. The other thing that we've done today is launch the Activations membership. So that is now open. So many of you have received the power and transformation and the magic, the literal chills down your spine of receiving one of my activations where I channel different spiritual guides, different ascended masters, galactic families, angelics, Elohim, the elementals, Lemuria, so many amazing different cosmic consciousnesses. And we do light language, we do channeled messages, we do energy work, DNA recoding. There are just so many amazing things that happen in those activations. And I have now created a membership for it where you can get access to those activations. You don't have to purchase them individually anymore. They are all together in a library for your ease of use and for you to listen to them as many times as you would like. So you can join the Activations membership through the links in the show notes. It's all very, very exciting. And I've been looking at the stats and seen the way that you guys have absolutely devoured episode 133, How to Start Psychic Channeling. And what's funny is the day after I recorded that episode, I woke up early in the morning and I had all of these transmissions come through, and my guides were like, there's so many questions and things that the people who are listening are wondering about. You should create a follow-up episode and answer some of those questions, and we're going to feed them all to you. And so I have lots of answers and more details on psychic channeling, and that's really what I want to dive into today. But first, I want to take a moment and just talk about Pluto and some of the astrology we have right now. Today, the lunar eclipse is happening September 17th and 18th. So we are in the eclipse portal. It's a little bit earlier this year. Normally, it is a little bit closer to mid to late October, but now it is September, early October. This is a really great portal where it's not going to feel like your life is being upended. It's really going to feel like you're peeling back a layer of worthiness, self-worth, understanding your value, and deciding how you want to show up in your life, and basically what you're no longer willing to put up with, and what you really truly want and desire. And so this can be in work, it can be in relationships, it can be in your soul purpose, it can be in where you live. You'll typically experience transformation in whatever area of your life you're experiencing dissatisfaction in, where the vibes are just not fucking vibing. And so that area of your life, you're probably going to have some revelations over the next 2 weeks as we go through this eclipse portal. But the big energy that you may have been feeling since the beginning of September, the changes, the things happening in your lives, I know that a lot has been going on relationally and just with your interpersonal relationships. You may have looked back over the past few weeks and been like, yeah, I've gotten in some skirmishes, some scuffles. I've had some bumps in the road in some of my relationships. And that is really coming from Pluto. So Pluto is finally making its last transit through Capricorn. This is deeply affecting the cardinal signs, which are Aries, Cancer, Capricorn, and Libra. We are at the end of this 15-year cycle. This is the big transformation that happened in the age of millennials. That generation is who this transit from 2008 to 2024 affected the most. That was the bulk of our 20s, maybe 30s, and it was our time for transformation, our time for growing up. And this was a very, very challenging Pluto transit. I mean, Capricorn is just such a fucking hard ass. And I say that as a Capricorn. Capricorn is just such a fucking hard ass. And so nothing was really off the table or held back. And what the transformation from 2008 to 2024 and this Pluto, because Pluto moves so slowly through the signs, this Pluto transit through Capricorn, what it really was about was work. And it was about Capricorn transforming work from being out of obligation, out of frustration, out of misalignment, out of desperation, out of lack and scarcity, out of the need or desire to get more money, transforming all of that and saying, there's no fucking way I'm ever going back to doing things that way. I am going to follow my passions. And when I'm following my passions, it doesn't feel like work. I'm no longer going to be chasing the bag. The bag is going to be chasing me as I follow my passions and do what I want to do instead of what the world has told me I need to do. And that's a huge shift. That is a conversation that I've had with many clients. And at first, it just makes them so uncomfortable because I'm tearing down the walls of the reality that they've been inhabiting for most of us since birth. And so it does take time to calibrate, and it does take time to get in alignment with what your passions are and to build up beliefs that the money is going to chase you when you're doing what is aligned for you, when you're no longer concerned about the numbers and you're much more concerned about your own state of happiness. From September, October, and November, the last 3 months that Pluto will be doing this transit in Capricorn, any of that debris that is left is going to come up and out, and it has to go somewhere. And I hear from people all the time about being unhappy in their jobs and in their work. And the answer to that is something that I learned from Bashar. I love the way that Bashar says it best. It's to follow your passions. Follow what you are passionate about. And you're a multidimensional being, so there's a lot of different things you're going to be passionate about. Once you find what you really like to do, start building the beliefs that you can be paid well to do that. This is really going to be the next 3 months of you just laying down the law and you just deciding what you are no longer willing to put up with, and maybe starting that passion, starting that project, putting yourself out there. Like, life is so short. You wouldn't believe the tiny amount of things that you've done in past lives. I mean, it is just sometimes it's kind of sad a little bit that I'll look at different past lives that I've lived and I was like, geez, I really did kind of like live and then die. And the whole thing was just all angst and no joy and no fun and no fulfillment. In this lifetime, everything is different. We have the whole universe at our fingertips. And one of the main messages that came through in the Lunar Eclipse activation that I channeled was the reminder from the Lyrans that we are being released from time, that whole construct is going away. If you choose it, if you allow it, if you embrace the idea that you could live many lifetimes inside of this single incarnation, you are going to have a wealth of experiences. But it starts with you putting yourself out there. It starts with you, pull the trigger, start the thing, hit go, buy the ticket, take the ride. You would be astonished at how you get to the end of a lifetime and you look back and realize how small you played it. How small and how safe you played the whole lifetime. And that feeling of, I could have done so much more. I could have experienced so much more if only I would have allowed myself to be it. If only I would have allowed myself to be myself instead of the cardboard cutout that society told me that I am. If I only allowed myself to just be free, there were so many things that I could have done or experienced or expressed in that lifetime. So don't get to the end of this lifetime and look back and say, shit, I played it small again, even though we were in the middle of an ascension and everything was at my fingertips. And now I'm going to go back into the etheric realm and plan it all and try it all again. Just fucking do it now. Put yourself out there, do the thing, and you're going to fall on your face. But then you know what you're going to do, because it's actually our instinct to do this. You're going to get up and you're going to try again. This is our natural instinct when there's something that we desire to experience. Don't expect yourself, just because you're a multidimensional being, to be instantly good at everything. You still have to go through the human learning curve. You still have to climb Cringe Mountain. You still have to be sucky. You still have to experience, the fashion trends of 2008 that we're all looking back and like somebody burned those pictures. We all have to live through the learning curve, but you're never going to get there if you don't try. So this is really a time of trying, putting yourself out there and deciding what it is that you want and how you're going to live. It's an incredible time to be on Earth, and it's also an incredible time just this year. This year has been phenomenal. I feel like this was a major turning point year for me personally. And I was actually thinking about this the other day. I was reflecting on 2024 and I was like, you know what? This feels like the year that I came back to Earth. I feel like I've been gone out in the, in the quantum realms of higher and different realities since 2020. And really that was since my spiritual awakening. I feel like I've been gone. But now I feel like I'm back. I'm back on Earth. I'm so much more concerned with the physical, in the moment, present experience that I am having than what's going on out in the cosmos. And let me go out there and find out. This was the year of me getting really dialed into my human lifetime, my presence here, and really, really embracing it and believing in myself like nobody's fucking business. And let me tell you what, if you want to know the magic secret of the universe, after all that I have learned and all that I have channeled and all the conversations I have had with the different consciousnesses all over this universe, I would say that the number one most powerful belief is believing in yourself. Just believing in you, that you can do it, that you can be who you want to be, that you can have what you desire, that you can create the reality of your dreams. And I'm so grateful for all of you who have found me this year and started listening. Thank you so much for your beautiful messages. I try to get back to as many as I can. This has been the one year when the podcast has tripled in size. And so thank you for your beautiful messages. I read all of them and I am not able to get back to every single one, but I do want you to know that I read it and I take a moment of gratitude, and I am so incredibly grateful for you and your stories and experiences that you have shared with me. But I'd love to help you have more psychic experiences if that is what you are desiring, and desiring to get reconnected with this part of yourself. You are a natural psychic, you are a natural channel, you have been channeling at a very low level for your entire life. It's where all of your good ideas have come from. Maybe some of your not well executed ones have also come from the quantum field, but you have been channeling your entire life. You'd be shocked at how much you've channeled that you've been completely unaware of. And the truth is that we experience a lot of channeling as imagination. Like, I'm looking for an idea, I'm looking for an answer, I'm looking for a solution. There's only one place for your mind to go, and that's the quantum field. And so it goes out there and it finds things. But the more that you are dialed into it, the better questions you can ask the quantum field, just like Google. The better question you ask, the more specific and correct answer you will receive. The answer that is best for you and what you're trying to achieve. So I want to dive into talking about, some of these other aspects of channeling that we didn't get to on episode 133. And then I want to go over the psychic clairs and what you might experience in them, what I have seen typically with clients who have taken my psychic channeling courses or private mentorship. So the first question is, how do I know if a being is of the light? How do I know if I'm doing this work on my own and I believe that I've raised my frequency, I believe that I've cleared my space, I believe that I have, tuned into a higher dimensional awareness, and I am seeking out a spiritual guide to connect to? How do I know if they are a being of the light? The first thing I want to say is that it is completely normal when you begin channeling for you to still have some fear about who you're going to connect with out there, and if they are, as some people would say, of the light or of the darkness. And I think that that's just semantics, and we just don't have the words in English to really encapsulate. So I'm limited by that. So you're just going to have to excuse it for now, right? So how do I know if a being is of the light? And what you mean is, how do I know if they're of the positive polarity? How do I know if they're my spiritual guide? And there are some checks and balances that I use when channeling. So the first thing is, do you feel love radiating from this being? Because when you are tapped into your spiritual guides, it feels like love is coming into your body, into your mind. You feel that you are lifted even higher than what you were initially able to achieve by meditating on the feeling of love. When you are in the presence and connected to your spiritual guides, it will feel like a giant hug. It will feel like love. It will bring tears to your eyes because of the enormity of the feeling of their presence. Many of you have been in sessions with me back when I used to do sessions, and you would see how tears would just start coming down my face as I'm channeling your guides, because the enormity of the feeling of love takes over my entire body and mind, and I am reunited with the truth of who I am, which is a being of source and a being of love and nothing else. And that truth is just so profound when you have experienced the antithesis of that, which is fear and lower frequencies, and that's the world that we were born into. So imagine going for 30 years in a world that is fear-based, and then coming back home to the love that you are and feeling that all over your body, in every cell, in every fiber of your being. It's a very emotional experience. So that's what you should be feeling when you connect with them. You should be feeling love. And if you don't, you can ask them, please radiate your love to me. I want to feel it. The reason that we focus on frequency when we are evaluating a being that we are connecting to is because frequency cannot be faked. It cannot. You feel the love or you do not feel the love. You feel the safety and security and pureness of being, or you do not. Or you feel like you are in thrall. You feel like you are hypnotized by this being and maybe the images that they are showing you or the things that they're telling you. But that is not the feeling of love. That is not the light. The love and the light, the frequency that I am speaking of, you feel that all around you, inside of your body, inside of your mind. There is no mistaking it for anything else. So people who get in contact with negatively polarized beings are not attuned to the frequency of love. They are not following the steps that I outlined in episode 133, because if you follow those steps, then your frequency is too high to connect with a being of a lower frequency. Another way to see that is to recognize the time in your life when you felt very, very low, very depressed, very sad, and you felt all alone. And the reason for that is because you dropped your frequency so far from where your spiritual guides are able to connect with you that you started disconnecting from all of them. And really at that point of, despair, there's only one being that can connect with you, and they will use all of their energy to try to push through. And that's an angelic being, because they have the power. A single angelic entity from an oversoul has the power equivalent to about 10 stars. Okay, if you were to just put that in energy terms. And so they're the only ones that have enough energy to reach down into despair and try to connect with you without losing their own polarity. When they connect with you at a very low point, they are using so much energy that their polarity starts to slip. They are connecting with negativity, and so they have the option to either receive the negativity or to bring the light and offer the light. And so that takes a tremendous amount of energy, the power that has to be there in order to do that. And that wasn't something I learned for a long time, but I had this very specific memory of being like a teenager, maybe like 14, 15, and I was crying over something and I felt so alone. And I was like, if there's anyone out there, please, please, please connect with me. And I was in like the pits of despair and I didn't feel anything. I felt nothing. And that's when I first started to doubt the whole religion thing and started to think like maybe there is nothing out there and we just made it all up in our minds. And of course, later when I was able to raise my frequency and connect with my spiritual guides, they're like, we didn't go anywhere. We were right there and you were not in any immediate danger, but your frequency was so low that it wouldn't have mattered how much we speak to you or try to connect with you. You would not have been able to receive any of it. So it's very important as you start your channeling journey to understand frequency and to understand the responsibility that you have to raising your frequency in order to connect with your spiritual team, because they are in a higher frequency. There are signs and there are symbols and there are helpers and there are so many things that they do attempt to send you if you are open and willing to it while you are in a lower frequency. But you're a big kid now. And it's your responsibility to take a few minutes every day and choose what frequency you are going to be in and attune your mind and your body to that frequency. It is not your spiritual guide's responsibility to do frequency work for you. They are more than willing to do energy clearings and to do attunements and to assist you, but you have to choose that, and you have to ask for that, and you have to be open to receiving that. That's your responsibility. A being of negative polarity cannot fake the feeling or frequency of love, because if they were to engage in the frequency of love, they would immediately begin losing their polarity to the negative. And that is something that they work for over many, 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 many lifetimes. They treasure it above anything else, how much negative polarity they have built up. And that is why you can often find negative entities and parasite entities inside of the aura of people who have had very low frequency, a lot of trauma throughout their lifetime, and they're sustaining a low enough frequency that the entity is able to attach to them and literally siphon off their life force and continue to influence them telepathically to do more and more negative things that keeps them stuck in those energies and frequencies. That's also why people who are really struggling inside of the lower frequencies can become hoarders, can have very dirty homes, because all of that energy just builds on itself to hold a low frequency. Raising your frequency is very easy, and it starts with making sure you don't have any dust around, you don't have any garbage, you have a clean home, you've got your salt, and you start focusing on the frequency of love. It's very, very easy once you get the hang of this practice, and once you start to learn how to read between what is the feeling of love and what is the feeling of not. And if an entity cannot project the feeling of love towards you, then they are not of the light. And you can just tell them, I dismiss you, leave now. There are no entities in the universe that are more powerful than you. I'm going to let that land for a second. There are no entities. It doesn't matter if someone's like, I'm the commander of the Galactic Orion Empire and the Emperor of the Empire, and I have been His Majesty's darkness for 500 billion years, and I lead all of the reptilian skirmishes. Doesn't fucking matter. They do not have more power than you. The power in the universe is free will. And Source has assigned an equal measure of free will to every self-aware being. The moment that you graduated into third density consciousness, however many thousands of years ago that was, you received your equal measure of free will, and that has exactly as much power as any other entity in the universe. They do not accumulate more. They can only accumulate polarity towards the negative or towards the positive. For some reason, I just started thinking of like Pokemon, and people will have like the different cards and the different, I don't know a lot about it, but I remember it from childhood. You would like have your creature, your Pokemon, and they were able to do like different things. This is not like that. This is not like that at all. Everybody has the same Pokemon in the universe. If you're a self-aware being, we all have the same exact one. So it has the same ability, and it's called free will. So the last thing I want to say, okay, there's two more things I want to say about this actually. The second to last one is, if you have ever wondered how the Arcturians were able to get all of this was way back during the wars, to get all of the reptilians to clear out of wherever the Arcturians decided to hang out in this galaxy. And the way that they do that is they actually project, so they don't have like missiles. They're not out there destroying ships through missiles the way that we think of warfare. They are literally in love-fare, and they project a beam of energy that is high frequency love light. And because negative entities want to hold on to their polarity, they only have two choices in that moment. They either accept the love light energy and it catapults them into the positive polarity, or they have to leave and they have to get away from that energy. Most of them that want to stay on their path will just blip out and disappear to the other side of the galaxy to get away from it. And so that's actually how the Arcturians are able to clear them out. And that's also why the reptilians never fucked with the Arcturian ships, because they had that technology and that ability to beam such a high frequency at such a high, I'm going to use the word velocity, but that's not really correct. Maybe volume. Such a high frequency and such a high volume that there was no way that they could stay there without losing most of their grunt workers. First are the first ones to go because they have less polarity that they've built up, and so their ranks would have been very quickly diminished. And that's really how galactic warfare actually works. It's a beam of negative energy versus love light energy, and the love light energy, because it's a higher frequency, it vibrates faster, and so it's kind of an ace up your sleeve every single time. Okay, the last thing I want to say about this is I've been watching The Rings of Power, and you guys know I love watching anything Lord of the Rings because it takes me straight back to Orion, and it's just very nostalgic for my soul. And so I'm watching The Rings of Power, and I hope I don't this shouldn't be a spoiler, but basically Sauron, who is the evil guy, he becomes Anatar, and Anatar is like this angelic looking elf lord that has been sent from the stars to assist in making these divine rings. And so he sells the whole deception, and all of these people who are around him are suspicious, but they allow him to sell the deception with the lights and the glowing and the nice hair and the glowing skin and how smooth and how suave he is and how he builds people up. But they're suspicious because the frequency does not match. And so their alarm bells are ringing, but they're not listening to them. It's the same when you're talking to different entities out there in the universe. If someone is selling you with this beautiful imagery and all of these beautiful words and all of this things that are just too good to possibly be true, but their frequency doesn't match, you don't feel love radiating off of them, you feel a little bit of fear, that's your alarm bell going off that is not a true being of light. And again, you can ask them, please radiate your love light frequency to me. And if they cannot, you tell them to leave. So that is how you know if a being is of the light. Another question that I often get is, how do I know if the advice I'm getting is coming from my spirit guide or from my own mind? And a lot of that is because your channeling voice will sound a lot like your own voice. And when you're new to this, it's a little bit harder to tell the difference between getting a channeled message and your own thoughts, right? And so you're a little suspicious of yourself. Am I just making this all up in my own head? So the way that you know advice that you have asked for, a question that you have asked, and you're getting advice from a spiritual guide is actually from a spiritual guide, is because their advice is very, very simple. Incredibly simple. It's so simple. The things that they will guide you to do to fix every single problem in your whole life, most of it is that you just need to go put your bare feet on some grass and discharge the negative energy out of your body and recharge yourself with the positive energy coming up from Gaia's field. Most people won't do it. And it's like the simplest advice. They're like, you could solve 99% of the problems in your life right now by spending 15 minutes a day with your bare feet on the ground. And people are like, well, that's not complicated enough. But I thought I needed a quest to go on. And it's like, the quest is to go find some grass and touch it. Your ego and your human mind want things to be more complicated. You want this elaborate answer. You want this difficult thing that you need to do. Spiritual guides give very simple advice. Their advice is put your bare feet on the ground, meditate for a few minutes a day, focus on opening the heart center, let go of the past. Very, very, very simple. And so sometimes it's so simple that when you're channeling, you kind of miss it because you're like, was it me telling myself to let go of the past? Did I hear that in a movie back in 1999? Or is it actually my spiritual guide? And the answer is both, because they told you back in 1999 through a movie to let go of your past, and now you're here in 2024, probably with the same problems, and the answer is still to let go of your past. I also think that this is a really good way to identify who you're talking to, right? So maybe you don't have a dial in on love frequency and what that feels like, but if an entity is giving you, 7 different bullet points of all the steps that you need to take, that's probably not your spiritual guide. Your spiritual guide is going to give you very simple advice, very applicable. Rarely ever do you need any other external tool. The other thing spiritual guides never ever tell you is they never tell you that you need to heal anything, ever. You're not going to find a spiritual guide out there that's like, you really need to heal this part of yourself, and it's just not going to go away until you heal it. Maybe the way that you interpret them giving you advice, like let go of your past, you think, I need to heal from my past. And so you start interpreting it and adding on to it through the 3D experience and what you have learned about inner work. But you will never hear from them, you need to heal this part of yourself. They don't believe in healing because they see you as you truly are, which is completely whole. What they are assisting you in doing is seeing yourself the way that they see you, because that version of you already exists. You just don't see it. You see the version of you that you have accumulated from the 3D reality, that you have built yourself up to be from 3D reality, which very rarely matches the version of you that they see. And because they are operating from a higher frequency, when you rise above the heart chakra is a filter for all of the untruths that come through the lower realms, the lower dimensions, and that's represented by the lower centers. And so they see you from a higher vantage point of truth, which means that they are seeing you as you really, truly are, and not as you are pretending to be inside of a 3D reality. It took me 3.5 years before I had the light bulb moment that I'd been channeling and working as a psychic that whole time, and I had been really engaged in healing work. And I know for a lot of you who have listened to some of my older podcasts where I teach healing work, now you're like, oh, she doesn't teach healing work anymore. And it's, yeah, I evolved out of healing work. And it took me about 3.5 or so years to realize that my guides had never once told me that I need to heal something about myself. I had projected that onto the very simple, straightforward guidance that they had been giving me. And bless their hearts, they're not going to interrupt what you believe unless you ask them to. And the reason for that is because they understand the law of free will to a degree that we cannot even fathom in this reality. We bulldoze the law of free will left, right, and center. I mean, the last time you tried to go to lunch at work and your boss said, no, you need to wait a little while, your free will was unhinged. So we trample all over free will in this reality every single day, but they never, ever, ever will. So your spiritual guides are going to give you very simple advice. They never talk about healing. They see you as completely whole, but they want to show you and reveal to you the truth of who you are, the way that they see you, because that makes everything in your life so much easier. And the next question I have here is, I talked a lot about, homes and how important where you are channeling is, especially when you are new at it. When you get more advanced and you get more skilled at managing your energy and your frequency, it won't matter where you are. You'll be able to channel perfectly from anywhere. But when you are new to it, it matters a great deal. So how do you properly clear your home? And I do have another podcast episode about this. I honestly cannot remember what the title is, but I think it's called like energy practices or spiritual practices, something like that. And I'll just very quickly kind of go over some of the basics right now. So number 1, cleanliness, dusting. Negative energy hangs out in dust. Dust is mostly made up of dead skin cells. It's dead, so it is already taking on a negative energy. Also garbage, the same thing. Garbage is things that you no longer want, and so they just intrinsically take on the energy of negative energy. So I never keep garbage inside of my office or bedrooms or anywhere that is going to be energy sensitive. I don't have a garbage can in there. I keep all of that out and away from the spaces where I would work or channel or sleep. And of course, regular cleaning and dusting, being aware of when you have these antique items or hand-me-down items. I know thrifting is really popular, so if you are going to clear your house yourself, this is what I would do. Most people wave sage around thinking that it is clearing negative energy, and I just have to tell you that that is not how sage works, and I will go over the basics of sage in just a moment. If I were going to clear my home, or if I were going to just clear a room in my home, what I would do is I would get a piece of new paper and I would lay it across the threshold, the door, into whatever room I'm clearing, and I would create a perfect unbroken line of salt, and I would prefer that to be Himalayan salt because it holds a lot more negative energy than white table salt. And I would create this unbroken line across the piece of paper. And that's so that you don't have to, vacuum it up from your floor or get it stuck in your carpet or something. So I would lay that across the threshold, and then I would get some crystals, sage, whatever. You can do this through the power of your own will. But what you're going to do is you're going to walk the perimeter. So if I had sage, I would be burning it along the perimeter of the room, and I would be chanting in my own mind something along the lines of, I bid goodbye to all negative energy and lower frequencies in this room and in this dwelling. You are excused. And I would be repeating that over and over, and I would take that sage all the way around the perimeter, because what sage does is it opens portals. It opens up the astral realm. And so if you're just burning sage and waving it around like I've seen everyone on spiritual Instagram doing, what you're doing is you're just opening a bunch of tears into the astral realm, and any old entity can come by and say, well, maybe I want to go hang out in their house and cause some shit to go down, cause a ruckus. And so what it does not inherently clear negative energy out. You need to be aware of that when you're using sage. You are opening up the astral realm, little tears, as if you're parting the curtains. And many entities, especially the negative variety, take that as an invitation for them to come in. So I do try to get this correction out there as much as I can. Don't just wave that sage around. I have seen my own spiritual mentors doing this, and I just can't even. And so what you want to do is you take that around the perimeter, and you're using the force of your free will to create a barrier instead of opening a portal. So you're creating that barrier with the sage or with a crystal, whatever you want to use, really. You're really doing this through your own power of your energy. And you are actively telling the negative energy, I bid you goodbye. You are excused. You are leaving. I am telling you to leave. And so we're not doing it with like this, a flourish of a wand, and we're like, and get out, and I release you through the power of the Christ, or whatever you may have seen in movies. We're not screaming at it. We're just telling it. It's just energy. You just tell it to leave, and it will leave. It will do whatever you command it to do, because you're the self-aware being. So you want to do that. If you want to be a little extra about it, I think you could definitely put that piece of paper and a line of salt across your windowsill, and also get the windowsill. The negative energy is going to leave actually out the door. And what it will do is it will be absorbed into that salt line, and then you'll be able to take that salt and to dispose of it somewhere, preferably away from your house. Don't just dump it in nature, put it in a bag and take it out with the trash and put it outside in a garbage bin. You are disposing of it out of this space. So that's what you're really doing with sage specifically. If you're not sure that you have the power of your own will to use sage, then I recommend not using it. Just don't start opening up a bunch of portals that you don't understand, and now you're having nightmares and negative thoughts, and negative things are happening around your home and in your life. And that can honestly be for a lot of people because they've been waving sage around, opening up the astral realm with no understanding of their power and what they were doing. Now, if you are understanding your power a little bit more and you feel like I can use sage to clear not just my home, but also items, yes, you can use sage to clear an item. You can literally use the sage to create this sort of barrier wave of energy coming from you that moves through the object and pushes out the negative energy. I do this now just through my own self. Objects, especially wooden objects, hold energy. And if you have some hand-me-down things or some thrifted items that you've never cleared properly, then they can be holding on to energy that is causing problems in your life, and you're totally unaware of it. I told this story maybe a couple years ago on a different psychic episode that I did, but my mom had this table that she'd been given from my grandma. And it was this antique table. It was very beautiful, and she wouldn't let it go. And I remember coming back to Washington State, and I had just gone through my initiation in the desert to become a psychic. And I walk into her office where this desk is, and I just felt this entity living inside of the desk. And I was like, what is that? And so this was when I was pretty new at it, and I needed things like crystals and sage, and my guides taught me how to properly use them for clearing objects. But I used, some sage to clear this entity out and basically cast it into the other side of the universe. But it was just this ball. It wasn't really a very self-aware entity. It was just this ball of like anger energy. And my mom had been struggling with these bouts of just feeling really, really angry out of nowhere, or with like the tiniest little trigger. And after I got rid of that entity, she was fine. She doesn't have that problem anymore. So there's things in your life that are happening on the astral level around you that you may not be aware of. And that's why having a good psychic education and feeling into frequency and being dedicated to having a very clean and a very clear high frequency space is going to affect your life positively all the way around. And I guess just to clarify, the way that you would clear an object is you can use the sage if you'd like, and you are just creating a barrier around it. And you're just saying in your heart, in your mind, if there's any negative energy attached to this object, I command you to leave the dwelling immediately. And you want to say dwelling, you don't want to just say I command you to leave the object, because sometimes they're slick and they will interpret that as, well, they didn't tell me to leave the house, So I'll just go to a different object that also has a low frequency. So you want to tell them to leave the dwelling or the estate or the property. And they will. They have to listen to you because that's your dwelling and that's your free will. And I really, really encourage you to use this if you are bringing home objects from the thrift store, because you just don't know the people's homes that object has been in and how it can affect your home and your family and your happiness without you even being aware. So that is some of the real, just quick basics on home clearing. Of course, Himalayan salt is fantastic. My sister, my brother-in-law, they now have Himalayan salt on either side of their bed where they sleep, so they've got it on their nightstands. My mom and my dad now have Himalayan salt on their nightstands. I've got Himalayan salt everywhere because it just absorbs negative energy all the time. It's like having a Roomba go around and it's just cleaning your floors. The Himalayan salt is just cleaning the energy. So I really recommend that. All right, so the last question that we have before we get into talking about the psychic clairs is, how do I clear my channel? How do I get it more clear so that all of the clairs are more vivid and just clarifying the channel? And I think that this is a good question, especially if you are pursuing doing psychic work, serving psychic work as part of your business. And it's quite easy. The way that I was able to clarify my mind and my body and to clear out density, really thinning out the veil whenever you're clearing density, is of course through these, clean energy practices, but also through things like Reiki and energy work. What they do in Reiki is they're channeling light that's coming from the 10th through 12th dimensions, and that pure white light, that higher light, coming into the body vessel, wherever they're directing it. So if you are getting a Reiki clearing and it is, head to toe, then they're going to be sending that through the entire body. What it does, even though it's called healing energy, is it's just clearing density. Density is what gives you the illusion that you have a physical illness, that you have something wrong with you, that you have some sort of emotional wound. All of that is through the illusion of density. So when we clear density, the truth of your wholeness is revealed. And I think that doing regular energy work and getting Reiki regularly or higher light, working with these energy healers, energy channels, and doing that regularly, it just cleans your whole system. It's like showering your energy body. And so it's good energetic hygiene, but that's what clarifies your channel. That is really the magic ticket to having a more clear and pristine channel. You want to clear as much density as possible, because the only thing standing between you and all that is out there in the universe is the density that you are encapsulated in having this holographic 3D experience. When I'm just sitting around working, you can pretty much find me at all times having some sort of energy worker on YouTube playing in the background. And so I just do a quick opening up my field. I have a few different channels that I really resonate with, and I just say I receive this energy clearing, and so I'm clearing my energy all the time. You can listen to those at work, you can listen to them while you're working out, you can listen to them when you're driving home, and you're receiving that energy. You don't need to have some big revelationary experience in order to have regular energy maintenance done on you. I mean, you don't wait until you're like absolutely filthy to take a shower. You just know when it's time for you to take a shower to keep up on your physical maintenance. And it's the same with energy work. If you're clearing out density every single day, you're going to have a very clear channel. You're going to be experiencing the clairsenses in a more vivid way. What will definitely happen over time is that you'll clear enough of your own channel and you'll get skilled enough at channeling that you'll probably start channeling your own higher light, your own energies from the 10th through 12th dimension, and they are purifying energies and they just clear away density. So I can channel on myself, but I also don't always want to focus on that, and so I just let other people do it for me. All right, let's jump into the psychic clairs and how you might start experiencing them now that you are going to begin channeling and you know how to clear your energy and clear your space and you're getting your energetic hygiene in order. What I want you to imagine when you're thinking about the clairs is I want you to imagine them all as dials that you can turn. And you have low on one side and then you have high on the other. So if you think of them as a dial, when you were born, you purposefully turned the dial down on certain Clair gifts. We call them gifts, but this is really just like your original cell phone. So you turned the dial down on these clairs, and some of them you may have left a little bit higher than the others so that you would just get a little bit of guidance and advice or some ideas or some direction when you were really kind of lost in the 3D reality. Now, it's important to remember before you get all gung-ho about being a psychic, and this is coming from a professional psychic, before you get all gung-ho, it's really important to remember that we came here to have a human experience. Like, we did this on purpose. And so we did not do this so that we could come here and just disappear back into the ether. We came out of the ether so we could be here. There's a purpose behind it. And so you turned down your gifts. Nobody did that to you. You chose which ones were going to be like totally off and which ones were going to be just barely on. So you could get a little bit of that guidance when you were inside the matrix. And the one that you probably left on a little bit more than the others is claircognition. Claircognition literally means in Latin, clear knowing. And what this will most likely feel like in your mind is your own head voice, your own inner voice that comes up with an idea, a spark of inspiration, a thought, a realization, and it's something that you will immediately say, I don't know how I know, but I just know. Or I had this thought. I had this idea. That's your clear knowing coming through. And when you first begin to channel with your guides, the voice that you're going to hear inside of your head is going to sound like your own head voice. What happened with me over time was that I was able to start differentiating between the tone, and I noticed that the tone my guide spoke to me in was much more confident than my own internal head voice. My own voice coming from my ego or mind would have a lot of doubt in it, would have a question mark at the end of every sentence, would have this unsurety. And they would also cuss. My guides don't cuss. I do. It would also have sarcasm in it. It might have this little tinge of negative energy. When you're talking to your guides, they don't talk like that. They speak in a very calm, direct, confident manner. And I think in religion, a lot of people have called that, the still small voice. That's the voice of God. That is the voice of God. God is also you. And that's really is what it feels like, is this still small voice, especially when you're first starting out, because you haven't really let them in yet. And when you start channeling, the claircognition is the first one that starts to develop very rapidly. That's where you are having these conversations, and it doesn't matter how much you're doubting it, it's already happening because that was your intention when you sat down to channel, when you sat down to ask them a question or to connect with them. What most people want when they can't really differentiate yet, they haven't been paying attention to the subtleties between the difference of their head voice and what's coming from their higher levels, they want their clairaudience to turn on. They're like, I want to hear your voice. I want to hear what you sound like. I think you sound different than me, and so I want my clairaudience to turn on so I can hear your voice different than mine. I don't know if I want to be the one to tell you this since I am a psychic, but I don't know if you really want to start hearing those voices inside your head. And the reason I say that is because for as long as I've been channeling and the way that I've been able to differentiate and open up some of my own clairaudience and hear different tones and different voices from especially like ascended masters. I don't know if you've ever heard me channel like Sekhmet. Her voice sounds so different than mine. And it's not even a her. It's literally this like cohort of Syrians and Lyrans. That's what they call themselves. And so their name together is Sek and then Met. And, but their voice coming through me when I'm channeling sounds so different from mine. And I've only turned on my clairaudience for that differentiation very, very lightly. So clairaudience is clear hearing. It's when you will actually hear a different voice. Maybe you are a female and you start to connect with a spiritual guide and you hear a male voice talking to you. One of the reasons that spiritual guides are very wary of assisting you in kind of like opening up your clairaudience and really using a totally different voice on you is because you have a higher likelihood, especially if you've been in a low frequency for a long time, of you thinking that you're insane. They are fully aware of our society and how we experience different mental illnesses. They're fully aware of what you might start thinking about yourself if you start hearing all these different voices inside of your head. And honestly, it can be quite uncomfortable. So I almost never ever recommend to my clients to start turning up the dial on your clairaudience unless you are a very experienced psychic. I was channeling for at least 2 years before I started turning that dial up at all. And I did that through my own free will. I did that through connecting with certain spiritual guides that I felt very comfortable hearing their unique voice come through into my mind. We had already built up quite a bit of trust between us that I felt comfortable doing that. And as much as I was comfortable doing that, it is still to this day an uncomfortable feeling having someone else's voice inside of your head. So I never recommend, especially for someone just starting out, someone who is just mastering their frequency, to start turning up your clairaudience. I think it's a recipe for you ending up thinking that there's something wrong with you, and that's really not the experience that your guides would want you to have. And so they have their own free will to not engage in something that could potentially be harmful to you or lead you down a harmful path. So there's not a lot of them out there that are just going to be like, you know what, you need to turn up your clairaudience so that you can hear my voice. You know, they're not self-centered like that. They're also not insecure about the fact that you're hearing through claircognition and you're hearing it through your own head voice. They're not insecure about that at all. You're insecure about that. You're the one doubting what's coming through to you. And that's why I think that raising your frequency and allowing yourself to just write down the answers and to just sit with it instead of judging what comes through to you is really the best way to begin mastering channeling. The next one that is sometimes a little controversial is clairvoyance. And I am very clairvoyant and I can turn it on and off. And most of the time I like it off because I like to be inside of my life. I don't need to know what's going on in the astral realm around me. I trust my senses, my clairsentience, to let me know if there's any kind of negative energy nearby. I don't need to see it with my own eyes. I've got enough going on. But clairvoyance means clear seeing, and it is the ability to see. And so there's two different versions of this. Now, the first version is you are seeing in your mind's eye. And you can measure how clairvoyant you are already through this exercise. So I want you to do this with me right now. I want you to imagine a red apple in your mind. Now, if you don't see anything at all, you cannot imagine it, you don't have the ability to imagine things inside of your mind, then that means you turned your clairvoyance all the way off when you went into this lifetime. It could be that you had a negative experience in a past lifetime where your clairvoyance was turned on too much and it was more than you could handle. Maybe you went a little cray-cray, and so you turned it all the way off in this lifetime. And I truly believe that people who cannot see or imagine things in their mind's eye, or who do not have an inner head voice, have turned those psychic gifts all the way off, and that they did that for a reason. But if you see like a kind of cartoon-looking red apple, means your clairvoyance is turned down significantly. If you see a very realistic looking apple, you can see the sheen to it. This looks like something you could just grab right in front of you and take a bite out of. Then your clairvoyance is turned up significantly. The more realistic you can see things in your mind's eye, the more your clairvoyance is turned on. Which means that when you are channeling, your guides will begin to use a mixture of claircognition, so clear knowing, with messages and immediate downloads, immediate understandings. This does not require time because they operate outside of time and space. So the download comes in what many of us psychics refer to as a packet of information. And you just immediately know how something works, why it is, where it came from, all of this information about it. But you didn't need linear time for your guides to tell you the whole story. You just received the packet of information, and that packet distributed in your mind and your awareness as an immediate understanding. And if your clairvoyance is strong, they will start to show you images that align with what they are teaching or showing you. These images can sometimes feel like a flash. It will often, especially in the beginning, it will feel like your imagination. It will feel like your imagination has started to run wild. And it's your imagination, but your imagination is you connecting with the field. So whatever word you want to use, channeling, imagination, doesn't matter. I think imagination is kind of the disempowered word for it. You're connecting with the field, and so they will start to send those images through to you. But you will know that they were channeled to you because they are dropping into your mind. You are not constructing them. No one asked you, like, how do you build a lollipop land? And you start to imagine and build up this lollipop land in your mind. Your guides will start to show you images. They may be from our world, they may be from other worlds. If your clairvoyance is not very strong to be receiving images from like past lives, things you've never seen in this lifetime, other planets, other dimensions, if it's not quite strong enough, or you're not trusting them enough, which means allowing them to send through those kind of images that could potentially be more jarring for you to experience, they will often draw from what you have seen inside your reality that is a close match to what they are trying to talk about or teach you about. And so they will draw from movies, TV shows, artwork, things you've seen on social media, things that you saw as a child. They'll draw from all of that and start using it a little bit like playing charades, trying to help you understand what they're talking about. So I'll give you a good example of this. When I was channeling about the Galactic Wars, I was very hesitant to receive the real images at first because my soul experienced a lot of trauma, a lot of very traumatic lifetimes, when you live through a lot of wars. And so I was a little hesitant. And so they started using imagery from movies that I had seen. And they're using the imagery, they're using it, and I'm like, okay, I think I understand enough, and I think I'm ready enough to see the real thing. Can you show me the real thing? And then the image completely shifts inside of my mind to something I may have never seen before in this lifetime. So what happens is you start to build up a trust muscle that starts to open each one of these psychic gifts a little bit more and a little bit more. You do not want all of them turned on because you would not be able to function inside of this reality. You have the power and the say over how much each one of them is turned on. And if you turn up the dial a little bit on maybe your clairvoyance and you say, no, this is too much. I feel like I'm seeing things in my mind's eye way too much. Or you start to see them with your physical eyes, which I would say for anyone in this reality, that's too much clairvoyance. You just tell your spirit guides, please turn my clairvoyance down. And they will do that for you. And you can be specific. Maybe you're like, I want to see things vividly in my mind, but only when I'm talking to you. I want to see things vividly in my mind. I don't want to see anything with my physical eyes. And they will match that with these internal dials in your psychic senses. I think one of the biggest misconceptions about the psychic senses is if I just open my third eye, then I will magically have all of these turned on, and then I'll have all the answers, and I will live happily ever after. And what I have seen is that people who go aggressively opening their third eye end up with physical illness, which is exactly what happened to me. Physical illness, they end up with a lot of headaches, they can't sleep at night, they have all of these negative symptoms because you're inside of an avatar that's designed to keep you here, not there. So when you aggressively bust open the third eye, you're basically telling your avatar, I want you to do the opposite of what you were designed for. And the body starts to have a lot of malfunctions and it starts to have a little bit of a meltdown because it's like, now I'm doing the opposite of what I was designed to do. I was designed to give them this 3D experience, to keep them here, to hold their awareness here. And now they're telling me, I want to bust this device open and I want to be able to have this 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12D experience, and I want to have a third and fourth dimensional experience. The body is going to go a lot haywire if you do that. So I never ever recommend someone aggressively going after opening the third eye to attempt to turn these psychic senses on. You can do all of this, and your third eye is going to start decalcifying little bit by little bit. And that's all that you need to communicate with guides, to channel information, to channel healing energies. You don't need more than that, because that's not the experience that you came here to have. Some people come and they're like, I came here to be a channel. And I truly believe that one of my purposes in this lifetime is to be a channel. But I also believe that the way that I was taught to channel was on purpose so that I wouldn't be aggressive about having these turned on to the point where I started to lose touch with this 3D reality. Now, if you are one of the rare people on the planet who came here and your clairvoyance is turned on too much and you do see things with your physical eyes and they freak you out and you don't want to see them, all you have to do is just send up a note to your higher levels. You don't even have to be channeling. You just say it in your mind. Please turn my clairvoyance down. I don't want to see anything in this 3D reality. It's distracting me. It's scaring me. It's not allowing me to be in the right frequency that I desire to be in. And you will get immediate assistance with that. Now, as a caveat, to add to the clairvoyance, we are in an ascension, which means that everyone's psychic gifts are going to be slowly starting to open. If you do these steps for channeling and you feel called to do that, you're going to be going faster than the rest of the human population. But the human population is going to be slowly opening their psychic gifts. I truly feel like humans are much more psychic than they've ever been before. They're having more psychic experiences. They're trusting things like intuition, especially men who were traditionally had those dials turned down much more than women would when going into a lifetime. But men are more psychic now than they've ever been on this planet. So it is happening to a small degree, and I think that that is what is intriguing a lot of you to pursue this on purpose. And I believe that the more education that you have, the better handle you're going to have on it as it begins happening to you, and you can share this information with the people that you know as it starts to happen to them. So let's talk about the clairsentience, and then we'll get into two of the more obscure clairs. Clairsentience is clear feeling. So when you have claircognition, that inner head voice, and the ability to tap into ideas, dreams, to see things in your mind's eye, but you also have the feeling. And this one, I would say, is similar to claircognition in that most people have it turned on a little bit. What it does on just a very simple human level, when you leave it turned on slightly when you go into a lifetime, is it gives you eyes in the back of your head. A lot of people call their clairsentience intuition. If you want to call it intuition and see it coming from your gut, however you're experiencing that, that's totally fine. But I'm talking about all the same things. That's all coming from clairsentience, which means clear feeling. Clairsentience is not located in the head. It's located all over the body, which makes it a very unique psychic gift. It's all over the body. It's inside the nervous system, which gives you those tingles when something is off, which gives you that gut feeling of like, no, I don't want to do that. It's interacting with the nervous system, and on an energy body level, it radiates into your aura, which is the eyes in the back of your head. I can feel someone looking at me. And so you turn around and sure enough, they're looking at you. That's coming from your clairsentience. That clairsentience spreads through the nervous system out into the aura, and it's literally like having eyes all around you. And we love this for humans because it helps humans avoid things like danger. It helps humans avoid things like going down the dark alleyway and doing a lot of stuff that might have got them X'd out of the game. That's the way that I'll put it. So we love having a little bit of that clairsentience turned on so that you have this feeling around you that you can tune into. And this is the easiest of the psychic senses to turn the dial up on. Because it's not so much that you use this psychic sense to tap into the quantum field and get a bunch of feelings from your spirit guides. It's that you use this psychic gifts in your everyday life to feel this reality around you. Now, I personally think it's great to have this turned on to the degree where you can feel people looking at you. Nobody ever gets away with that with me. I can always feel exactly who in the room is looking at me, and you can also use like your claircognition to connect with other people's minds. Maybe you are very, very close with your partner or your best friend, and so you guys finish each other's sentences and you literally are hooking up claircognition to claircognition, and you're sharing information through your psychic senses. And so it's like when you're with your spouse and it's like, oh, I already know what they're going to say. I already know how they're feeling about something, or I can tell that something is off. Or we're reading each other's minds. All of that is happening through clairsentience and claircognition. So you can use your psychic senses inside of this 3D reality to connect with other people, to connect with your environment. Now, the downside of clairsentience is that most starseeds had it turned on just a little bit more than some of the other population that came here for karmic experiences, whereas we really came here for transmutation and ascension experiences. And the downside is that you can become way too sensitive. You can start to feel everything. You feel how other people feel about you, And when you don't know how to manage that and you don't have the emotional maturity for it, you can start to feel like this flood of other people's energy. You can feel very down about yourself, like no one likes me, everyone is criticizing me. The people in here think I'm weird or they don't want me here. And we've even labeled it, highly sensitive person, an HSP. But then instead of taking accountability for ourselves and, learning how to manage our energy, how to clear our energy, learning the law of attraction, that we were attracting things that we think about a lot, learning how to turn these psychic senses down, which I realize is pretty niche. Not everybody knows how to do that. But instead of taking accountability for it, we started to use HSP like a crutch. Like it was something, like we had some sort of like medical condition. I'm an HSP, so I can't go, I can't do it, I can't handle this, I can't handle that. And it can be a very disempowering way for a lot of starseeds to live. And so many of them that came here to help humanity and help the population are now like, I need to go live in the woods and be away from everyone because I just can't handle you people. Like, I know I came here to teach this class, but these kindergarteners are driving me crazy. And I really believe that as light leaders, starseeds, galactic souls that came here to assist not only ourselves, but also humanity, that we can do better, than needing to go live in the woods and be away from everyone and not talk to anyone for the rest of our lives. I mean, as tempting as that sounds, I really think that we can do better and learn how to manage our energy, learn how to grow our emotional intelligence and our emotional maturity, and manage our gifts, manage these psychic senses, and just believe in our own power that these gifts are responding to us. The world around us is responding to us. No more of this disempowerment, like I'm a victim of all of these crazy psychic senses that I can't get a handle on, or I'm a victim of not being able to use mine at all, and so I feel like I can never talk to my spirit team. You have to believe that you are the power. You have to believe that you are the one. You have to believe when you give a command to your energy, to your body, to your chakras, to your clair senses, that it will listen to you. You are the power in your life. And especially with the clairsentience, if you're like, I just feel everything, I can feel everyone's emotions, it's all too overwhelming, take the power back and tell your higher levels, I need you to turn down this clairsentience so that I am not so sensitive and so that I can have an enjoyable experience in this reality. And they will do that for you. All right, let's wrap this up with the last two psychic senses that I want to talk about, the last two clairs. These ones are kind of funny, and I always say like these are optional because you can definitely channel all of the information that you'd like to receive from your guides through claircognition and clairvoyance and clairsentience. But these just add some extra flavor while you're channeling, literally extra flavor. So the first one, and this is one that I had turned on already in this lifetime, and it was clairolfaction. So clairolfaction means psychic smell, the ability to smell things that you are channeling or tapping into. And so a lot of people experience smell as part of their memory. You might remember someone when you were young had a certain perfume or a certain scent about them, and it always ignites that memory. If you find that to be true about yourself, you might have clairolfaction, but maybe you've never tapped into another planet, past lifetimes, where there was something for you to smell through your channeling that was not physically present with you. My very first experience of clairolfaction was when I tapped into the etheric realm, this was like the first time I realized that I could channel and like tap into other places, not just have these kind of very simplistic conversation with my guides, but I tapped into the etheric realm and my grandma was there. And so her soul's been in the etheric realm for like 25, 30 years, a long time. And so she was there, and the first thing that happened was that I smelled her perfume, and it was all up in my nose. And I was like driving at the time, so there was no one around me that would have had perfume. There was no possibility that it was coming from somewhere else. And it was like her very distinct perfume smell. And it immediately took me back to being a kid and smelling that on her. But it was a scent that I had totally forgotten about. And what's funny is it was kind of like she was telling me, like, you have this psychic sense, because there really was no other reason for her to ignite that in my energy. And so she was kind of showing me, like, you have this extra psychic sense. And so the way that I've experienced it the most in my channeling as a blue flame channel is that when I tap into past lives, I can smell what the room or whatever scene we're tapping into would have smelled like. The first few times that I did this, I didn't know how to turn it off. And I was like, man, the ancient world, like, what is this smell? Everything smelled, it's like the smell that we associate with like mustiness, but it's really like the scent of like dirt. There was dirt everywhere. There was no paved roads. Very, very, very few ancient civilizations had anything close to what we would call pavement. And so there was just a lot of dirt everywhere. And that's what they would kind of create, these walkways and places for their carts and for people. And so I'd be channeling and I just have this like very distinct smell of like dirt all up in my nose. And whenever I actually do go out onto the trails, if you ever go hiking or trail running or anything, and you smell like the dirt, that's really what most ancient civilizations smelled like, just on a day-to-day basis. And so it's kind of this like dirt, and then you also have people and sweat, and I guess you don't need to know what everything smells like. But it's just a fair warning if you go around turning this psychic sense on. There are a lot of places that don't smell that great. The most unusual ones are definitely off planet, and this just blew me away when I started channeling other planets and tapping into scenes and civilizations, is that other planets have smells that I've never experienced here on Earth. It's totally different, and some of them have different mineral compositions on those planets. They'll have different plants, they'll have a different atmosphere, and so you can tap into smells that you have never experienced and you will never experience on Earth. And because of that, there is literally no way for me to describe these smells, because they just don't smell like anything that we have here. It smells like you're on a different planet. That's the best way that I can put it. So that is clairolfaction, and then there is clairgustance, and that is the ability to taste something. And I truly believe that people have this psychic sense if they're able to just think of something, a food, and they're able to immediately imagine the taste inside of their mouth, then you probably have clairgustance turned up. And this is one that after the smell came through and I started playing around and learning how to turn them up and down, and I really just do that through my own commands and working with my spirit team. So they'll turn them up if you want them up, and they'll turn them down if you want them down. It's not, you don't need to do some ritual or something. But I remember playing around and I was like, okay, clairgustant, like tasting. And so I started turning that up a little bit and being able to taste things, which is very much associated with the smell. And so it came really easily for me. And what's interesting is that I find it the most vivid when I am channeling on a ship, on a galactic ship, that there is just sort of this like taste about it. And again, it's not like anything we have here on Earth, so I have no way of describing it to you. But I find that when I'm channeling on ships, there's like this very certain taste inside of my mouth. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm starting to get the taste inside my mouth. I wouldn't describe it as pleasant or unpleasant, but definitely as unique, and that it always signifies to me that I'm astral traveling or projecting my consciousness onto a ship, and that it's like, we're here, we've arrived. You can taste it inside of your mouth. I really can't think of any instance where I've needed these two psychic senses. So maybe you'll come up with a good reason why you would use them or what you would use them for. I really can't think of anything that I needed to use them for. They just came on and I played around with them. And in general, I tend to have them turned off because I don't want to smell the Middle Ages. It is not nice, okay? I definitely don't want to taste the Middle Ages, and I don't want to taste a lot of the things that humans used to eat because our palate has changed drastically. The foods we used to eat, honestly, for a long time, I guess with the exception of like some Roman lifetimes that I had, a lot of the food just didn't taste good. There, like, things that we would make didn't taste good. And so most of us would seek out, like fruits that we could eat. And that was very flavorful for us. That was like a treat. And now, of course, we have all of these different foods and our palate is completely different than it used to be. So for the most part, I don't want to taste. I don't want any smells or tastes coming, especially from like Middle Ages, any of the time periods or planets where whatever species was just not fond of washing and taking care of themselves. I turn those psychic senses all the way off. I don't need to know the smell. So now you have a pretty comprehensive introduction, 101 psychic education. You know more than what you bargained for. But I do know that if I feel called to teach something, it means there's a lot of people around me that have the desire to learn it going on in their life right now. And that's kind of why this information is coming through me. So I do wish you all the best as you begin getting out there, channeling, talking to your spirit guides, downloading information, guidance, wisdom, and expressing yourself, because really this whole party is about you and what you want to do and be and create in this lifetime. And if you are wanting more specific training, I have a psychic channeling level 1 workshop that you can take. It's available on wellspringofficial.com. I also have blue and violet flame activations. If you're like, I just want to dip my toes in and see what could come through for me. And of course, you can always reach out via DM on Instagram at IamTheWellspring or through my email contact page on the website if you are interested in getting on a waitlist to do a group psychic channeling level 1, a live round of that course, or to do the 1-to-1 private mentorship. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you will send this to a friend, someone else out there that you talk about psychic stuff, witchy woo-woo spirituality with, and you already know that I will see you on the next one.